video because they had to redo the other one. I went a little bit too far with names. I'll keep it at first names. Names that I can remember. But this may be one of my last videos because I'm glad that I've helped a couple of people, but I'm tired of the people targeting us. They hack all of our devices and they access them remotely and they mess with them. They screw with the drivers. I'm sick of it. I'm, I'm sick of the stuff that's happened to my family. I don't know the problem that, a significant portion of the people who target us from the black community, I don't know what the connection is between me and them, but I don't understand. You know, I studied 2 semesters of my undergrad studying the civil rights era, studying all the way from slavery through then, which was back in the early 2000s. I've dated a couple of African American. Well, I've dated one African American girl and had hung out with another. You know, yeah, I worked at a couple of contracting companies that our contract was about 85% black, but otherwise, I don't know what the problem is. Why we keep getting targeted. I was given 20% rating, but within the letter they denied stuff that even in the letter they admitted was there, um, and other stuff in the letter that they criteria to deny me. Either they excluded medical testing information or they lied about it right in the rating letter. I don't know which. I can't judge which. And some stuff that's supposed to be presumptive, they denied it, even though I was in theater. You get these issues and you're in a particular location, that's as far as you have to go. Then you document what the symptoms are to know the level of rating. That's it. They weaponize my VA benefits. And then I found out in the letter that I don't believe that all black people are bad. That's not my personality. I don't judge people by race or ethnicity. But I found out in the letter that the lady who rated me, a lot of the criteria, the reasons why they denied me was stuff that she wrote. Uh, but I'm tired. I'm tired of the stuff that's happened to my family, affected my children, affected our income. Uh, so, then they didn't put any timelines for payment, and still, they insulted me, saying I don't have enough hospital stays or doctor's visits regarding sinusitis to qualify for a rating. So they slapped me in the face and said, "Oh yeah, there's something here, but 0%." Generally, when the raters do that, they just want to slap you in the face. Because if there's something there, but it's not rateable, there's nothing there. It's just a slap in the face to veterans. And evidently they, forgot to notice that I'm given in my regular treatment for asthma, and they didn't even rate my asthma right. they totally ignored my FEV of below 75%. I'm at like 65 to 68. They totally ignored it. I should be at 20 to 30% for my asthma, just to insult me. And intermittent, it's not intermittent. I take this stuff pretty much daily. Some years or some days, uh, it's more than others. Some days maybe once, other days, some of this stuff maybe twice. If it's allowed on the label. But they ignored a whole bunch of stuff, and they underrated me just to insult me, just to humiliate me again, and keep me in poverty. And we can't forget how Dr. Randall and Tammy, they refused to put the paperwork that Dr. Randall put for the state. They refused to put it in my VA record, the diagnosis and the ICST, ICTN, what is it? ICST, the code, the diagnostic code. They refused to put it in the computer. Now, go for illness and fibromyalgia, it fits until we can get more in depth laboratory studies. Yeah, there's something going on. It seems to be overlaying issues besides the diabetes. There's some kind of other inflammation going because some of my inflammation is high. Other inflammation markers, there's nothing there. Then other inflammation markers, my opinion is because we're using Arup Labs. Arup Labs, they sued the FDA. This is all common knowledge. They sued the FDA, saying the FDA does not have the right to tell them testing ranges, ranges of presenting of particular autoimmune markers and inflammatory markers. The FDA does not have the right to set a standard for it, and the FDA does not have the right to tell Arup Labs, about their variables, about cohort studies, or about processes within their proprietary laboratory protocols regarding autoimmune. I don't like this lab. They're deep friend, evidently deep pocket friend of the Republican Party because they got their VA contracts in 2020. 2 months, no, not even 2 months, I forgot, inauguration. A month and a half after inauguration, they got their contracts. But when you dig, it was a Republican controlled Senate at that time. It wasn't Democrat controlled, it was Republican controlled. And the House was barely Democrat controlled, barely. So we see some interesting patterns here. But they got their contracts, and they don't believe in a rule of law. They believe that it's their trademark, it's their patent. Nobody else can tell them anything. So if that's the attitude of our government, then I guess gun makers, they're not responsible for anything either. So people should be able to do whatever they want with their weapon, even if they make it in their garage. That's the hypocrisy that's happening in the country. Or what about people being able to say whatever they want in public realm without being sued, without being threatened? Again, that's the direction we're going. People who are extremely wealthy and powerful can do whatever they want. That being said, they have no cohort studies done to see the exact levels of a person who does not have any kind of autoimmune, including in their family. How many what kind of levels of autoimmune markers they have, inflammatory markers, I mean, for immune conditions. The general population, non-immune disease population, what are their inflammatory marker levels? Arup Labs has never done such a study, but they assert that their testing ranges for their inflammatory markers and autoimmune testing laboratory protocols, their ranges account for the inflammatory markers found in the non-inflammatory disease and non-autoimmune patient population. But they've done no studies. So that means right there their presumption is wrong. It's erroneous because they can't tell people, okay, what would a 50-year-old male that has no history of inflammation, any kind of inflammatory condition or autoimmune disease in their family, for a CRP, what would their level be? They can't tell you that. So I don't consider them to be veteran friendly. I consider them to be, they're after veterans. And it's not in a good way. Especially considering the past 20 years, 25 actually 30 to 40 years. Oh, wait, let me think back. No, 50 years, the past 50 years, the level of inflammatory conditions and autoimmune um, and related medical problems that veterans have had. This would be starting after Vietnam up until now. A little bit less in the Korean Peninsula, but still some stuff was there too. But largely Vietnam through now. Excluding Grenada. Um, we didn't use a lot of Terra type stuff. Terra is the toxic exposure regulatory administration. I forget, but anyway, it's the toxic stuff: burn pits, the defoliants, the depleted uranium rounds, sarin gas, pesticides, even pesticides. There's some bases in the U.S. up until 20 years ago, they were still using destructive pesticides. Um, Stuff like that. And actually, I encountered this when I was studying some things about Hawaii. Some of the more western bases, especially in the Pacific, they're still using various kinds of compounds that can be harmful to aquatic animals right by the ocean. This is a problem at some of the bases out. I used to be out around there back in the day. One of my duty stations was there, and yeah, some of the stuff they're using around the ocean can be harmful to ocean life and to shorebirds. But anyway, for people who like to fish, that's kind of problematic. You're eating bad fish. But anyway, so these my some of my issues are bothering me today. But anyway, so back to the fact that these exposure type stuff, these exposure type issues, they're very relative to many veterans today. Very relevant. A significant portion of us have been exposed to stuff. And don't let if you've been in Southwest Asia, some people say, "Oh, nothing ever happens in Kuwait." Well, if you read back in the history, all the way from southern Iraq to the ocean, all the way down to the shores of with was it the Gulf of Arabian Gulf or Gulf of Kuwait? I forget. But anyway, all the way down to the ocean in southern Kuwait, at Kuwait City, you're exposed to, yeah, burn pits. Some of the burn pits burn for several hours a day. Um, but you can't forget, again, Then that's all of Iraq and Kuwait. I mean, some bases in Kuwait had them less than Iraq, but still, the fact of the matter is, for 6 months in 1987, I believe it was, you had over 300 oil wells burning all the way from southern Iraq to the shores of the ocean in Kuwait City. 300 plus oil wells were burning. That that all the toxicity is still in the sand. The sand is different than the ocean. The ocean has high salinity levels that break stuff down and will even have a purifying effect like wetlands do. Anybody who studies ecology, they know what I'm talking about. But it can have a purifying effect like wetlands do. The desert doesn't have that. It just gets blown around again and again. And then what rare rain comes, it gets pounded back down. So every dust storm, you're breathing in fumes that are not good for you. Even if you only see one dust storm your entire time there, how much stuff did you breathe that later is going to harm you? You don't know. So that's the nature of a presumptive illness. Is supposed to all you need to be is diagnosed with it, and then that's the stage that's set your diagnosis. And once that stage is set, all they got to do is bring out your symptoms to know what your rating level is. So when people are talking about you don't meet the criteria for rating, even though you have a presumptive condition, they're contradicting themselves. So yeah, I was sabotaged a lot in this, and some stuff, like I said, they're either ignoring testing data or they're lying. They're completely lying about 3 FEV tests that I got. They're either ignoring them or they're lying. But 20%, just with those 3 issues alone, if you look at the science, you look at all of the paperwork, that 20 should be 40. And, considering the sinusitis, I take steroids that are prescribed to people with sinusitis daily because of my other medical issues. In denying my high blood pressure, I have more than enough times of my blood pressure being severe, more than enough, severe hypertension. They denied it. Again, this is another PACT Act presumptive condition. They denied it. And, even if drops in blood pressure that are there now, it's because the medication I'm taking, it lowers blood pressure. That's an off-label use for diabetics. It helps lower their blood pressure. But, then they refused to put the Gulf War illness and fibromyalgia, Dr. Randall and Tammy, Bobby, whatever. They refused to put it in my record. And instead of putting it in my record and telling them, hey, you filled out this paperwork for the state, which I checked via email to make sure it was them, and they acknowledged, yes, we did that. They refused to put it in my record. To update my VA file with those diagnoses and those codes. They refuse. And so I made a complaint. And the VA retaliated by changing my provider, not putting the codes in there, but changing my provider to somebody who I can't even find out her background, if there is that much. I know this person hasn't worked at the VA for 20 years. You can't just walk into VA as a nurse practitioner. You can't just walk in. But I can't find any academic background on her. The school that she went to, they tend to have good clinical praxis, but academics, I don't know. And I mean, even the clinical praxis, I'm not too informed about their program, but I know it's not a deep academic background, which is really important for PACT Act veterans because the research about burn pits and about exposures to the desert sand and about Agent Orange and all of this stuff, the past 6 or 7 years, the money has been put out there, especially with the PACT Act. The money has been put out there for more and more research, more NIH grants, um, more NSF grants. So you got to be up on the academic work that's currently ongoing. And now, this is the first time in history that a significant portion of your veterans have had toxic exposure. This is the first time in history. Spanning all the way from, I mean, there's reports that some stuff happened in Korea. That may be true. So we're, including them, but definitely from the first point of entry into Vietnam, which was 1960, oh gosh, 1963 or 65. Oh, see, that's that fibromyalgia fog, they call it. 62, 63, or 64, we went in. And finally, Nixon, the guy everybody wanted to hate, but at least he pulled us out of Vietnam, which was a war that we weren't approaching properly. We were having too many losses. We were, one minute we're restrained, the next minute we're dropping bombs. Then we're spraying defoliant. Then we're restrained again. And we didn't do much differently in Iraq or in Afghanistan or Yemen. We didn't do much different. The only thing we successfully did was liberate Kuwait. That was successful and maintained until now. But a lot of your veterans nowadays are going to have some kind of toxic exposure. Many, many, many of us. So you have to be informed about that. That means reading your studies all the time. I have not encountered that at this VA. But so they retaliated and gave me a new provider, didn't update anything. I don't know the payment dates for my claim, and I was shortchanged in my claim. And the communities, the people, I'll say that, the people that are targeting us are getting more aggressive, trying to stop in the middle of the street or a driveway and yell at me and ask me why the FUCK I'm taking so long. And I'm waiting for all the cars, or getting on their big, thick tired bike. I guess it's some kind of racing bike, and trying to intimidate my daughter and I by riding so close to us in the middle of a yard that give you that feeling that somebody was going to try to knock you over, or it's doing stare downs or drive-throughs. And then, the fact of the matter, the people under us, they pop in every now and then to try to make trouble. And the people that supposedly moved from across the way, across the corridor, they're still here because somebody's taking the inserts out of their door. And these people, they hacked us. They destroyed our devices. The young man that lives there is a hacker, and I've caught him more than once. He should be in prison. And their family is a fake Valor family. I don't like them. And they're friends with the people who assaulted me. More fake Valor types who I found after an investigation have been living the past 6 or 7 years, going from identity to identity, living under assumed names. Sometimes Hollywood starlets. But somebody brought them here from Arizona. That's what they told me at one time. They're from Arizona. But these are people that they assaulted me, they abused my family, and they were really uncomfortably oriented towards my daughter. I don't know the issue there, but I just found it creepy, really. And again, they're abusive. They damaged my car. They threatened us. They assaulted me. But anyway, yeah, this neighbor knows them. I saw one of the guys go to his house probably 2 or 3 occasions. One of the guys who assaulted me go right in there. And he's threatened me as well. I believe one time he had a knife in his hand in his pocket. It looked like a knife, the head of a small paring knife. But anyway, somebody's taking their inserts out of the door. And the people under us are leaving them in. That's all. People do all kinds of deceptive games to target my family or to hide out. Yeah, the person underneath us got very aggressive with me one time, about a foot from me, very aggressive on the public walkway. And all because she's swearing and cussing and screaming from her patio, which is right next to our front door. I think I hear him right now yelling again. Well, it's not yelling. We'll call it heightened discourse, heightened volume discourse. Sounds like it. Anyway, um, so I just questioned her because I didn't know if she's talking to me or something's going on in the house. It's the last time I care what's going on. If people come near my door or they get aggressive, everybody knows that I know my rights in the state of Michigan, and I will not hesitate. I will never have any uh, compassion ever again when people step over a line. I will never question. I will never give them the benefit of the doubt. I will never hesitate. I will not give them a chance to speak. I will take the action that I'm trained to take. And if people want to try to intimidate or sneak up on us, they'll have a surprise coming. That guy don't know. That guy that tried to run us over with the bike doesn't know how close I am to just putting my arm out and hitting him right in the face. That's all I would have to do. He was coming probably about 15 miles an hour. All I had to do is put my arm up and my elbow would have hit him right in the face. He lives in our building too. Well, not our building, our complex. But this is supposed to be about the VA anyway. So they changed my provider without ever asking me, and it looks like it was started by Jennifer. And why do these MSAs have so much power over my my um, my veterans benefits, my veterans medical care, my medical record? They refuse to update things. They make up their own forms. The guys in the patient advocate office say, "Oh, if your provider refuses to put something in your record, we have a form. Yeah, we call it the supplemental information form. You can fill out things on there. It's a form created on somebody's laptop in Word. It's not even an official VA form. Can't put it in the record. The only non-VA forms that can be put in record are pathology reports, radiology reports, consultant medical opinions, blood test results, and sometimes they refuse to give you the raw data. They'll just put in some assigned range from a lab or from their lab. They'll refuse to give you your actual score. They'll say, "Oh, yep, you're above 5." That's it. What was it? 4.8888 or 2? You're you're above 5 or you're below 5. I mean, that's it. You don't see the raw data when it should be put in your blue button. It should be uploaded. They do that all the time just to mess people over. Even when the VA helps pay for ER visit or for medical devices or for vaccines or plasma, they don't put it in there. This is the worst VA I've ever seen, and they like to retaliate. They like to hurt people. And why is somebody who is related to my former business partner that disappeared? He refuses to reply to my messages, my phone calls, my texts, my emails about what he's going to do regarding the company. And I need to see his ID because he wanted to be a part of the company, but he refuses to show me his ID. And why is somebody that's related to him? I'm pretty sure it's his daughter-in-law. Why is she touching my medical file? And why are there so many people involved in me transferring my providers? Why are so many of them LPNs and MSA? MSA is not a VA title. It's some ridiculous title used by Morley Vet Connect in this part of Michigan. Their call center contract, MSAs. It's not even a legitimate. You can't study to be a medical scribe. There's no such thing. Either you're a medical assistant or you're not. There's no such thing as a medical scribe. I think that's ridiculous and the most unprofessional thing I've ever seen. But anyway, why do most of the people who touch my medical file regarding anything, LPNs or MSAs? Maybe every now and then an RN thrown in there. RNs that in the beginning, this one RN, Danielle, in the beginning, she did a good job, but I noticed over time when I look back at my file, she got more and more delayed. She did more and took less and less action to have things corrected. She became more and more gaslighting, and she, took action to correct errors less and less, just over time. And we see that a lot with our cases with um, with agencies, especially with the VA, HUD-VASH, and the medical side. We see over time our care gets worse and worse, if it was ever good at all. Some of my care providers at the VA, they were never good. And that brings me to I have two providers, two Liz's, and one of the Liz, she she does the power chair, and she never helped me. The minute I sat down, I knew she wouldn't help me. She wouldn't say anything positive. She said, "Oh, you have to have a neurological condition." I thought fibromyalgia was that. I thought nerve entrapment was that. I thought spinal problems was that. Back problems was that. It's all nerve problems. And then I can't forget the veteran that was there with me who she said he got a chair. That was a lie because I actually talked to him a couple of times, and I talked to him more the other day. and his chair is supposed to be getting repaired. This is month 3 of him being without a chair. A dual amputee, double amputee, who the VA gaslights and treats badly enough that he has to go around in a wheelchair. A wheelchair. That's not how you treat a veteran, especially an honored elder veteran. That's not how you treat a veteran. And you can't forget me. I was denied one, but certainly he should have been treated better, without a doubt. Me? I mean, yeah, it's complicated to give me a chair because I have neurological issues. Plus, I have diabetes, though, and I'm obese. But then again, looking at the big picture, it's probably better to have a power chair and then prescribe physical therapy via swimming and physical therapy via various neck and back exercises, or not exercises, stretches and stability, stability type practice along with swimming. But of course, that's why I'm not a provider there. That's why I'm not a provider at all. Evidently, I would do the right thing. But she denied me anyway. And instead, I know the guy who got my chair because I saw him get on the bus. I would put it this way: an expensive scooter, it's great to support American made, but can't forget Amigo. Amigo makes some good stuff too. But anyway, so this scooter company out of Indiana, they got the contract, even though we have a local Saginaw company, Amigo. They have a facility in Saginaw. Actually, it's Bridgeport. But he got his scooter from, I can't remember the darn name. That's the fibromyalgia fog now. Now I know what to call it when I have something that's just gone. I can't remember the name of the darn company, but they're out of Indiana. I know that much. But anyway, guy got the scooter, and I've talked to him before. The only thing he has is a back problem. He doesn't have anything else. That's it, a back problem. And he got a brand new, very expensive scooter. And not only that, but if somebody was to subpoena bus videos when he got on the bus, he carries the scooter. When he goes up the ramp, he'll actually carry it, lift it up, and move it around so that he can drive it into the rest of the bus. If you could pick up your scooter, you probably shouldn't have one. Especially if you have back problems and you're pulling from your thoracic spine. Actually, that would be lumbar. That would be lumbar thoracic, that area, lumbar thoracic, or thoracic lumbar, actually. That's the proper way to say it. Anyway, so makes me sick to my stomach, especially about the veteran that is going around in a wheelchair, and it's not even a good one. It's definitely not his power chair. Does it really take 3 months to repair a chair? Last time I knew, Hoveround and Amigo, they send out technicians to the house. So something's not right here. And with all that freed up money from getting rid of unneeded employees and telling people, no, you work at the VA, you shouldn't be sitting here for a couple of hours a day, like I witnessed, calling people about your taxes, or as I witnessed, sending funny videos back and forth or chatting about patients that you don't like. You're supposed to be working or taking more than your allotted breaks to go out to the smoke area. because everybody in your office smokes. Nobody cares. They're supposed to be taking care of veterans. They have very good jobs, great retirements. Seems to me like they're being abused. And some of these people, even from where I'm from, where I was born, and they have that kind of attitude to ignore things happening to veterans. It's shameful. Shameful. Just ignore it. Yeah, it's a horrible VA. This VA has, they have done a good chunk of just absolutely destroying my health, destroying my life. I hope that I helped a couple of veterans with this channel, but I think, I have to do what I can to make sure my children are protected and to get them away from this environment. My youngest daughter, especially, everything that's happened to us, this has affected her. She's a great kid. She's very resilient, but still, she's human, and it has affected her. And my oldest, first she was bullied by people connected in the Philippines, connected to Saginaw, bullied, and then they tried to insert themselves. This is what traffickers do. They always cross a boundary more and more and more and more every time until they find a way so they can get something. Well, now they're an intermediary. They took over her social media accounts. I don't chat with her. I chat with the intermediary, and I haven't talked to my daughter now in 4 years. I talked to the intermediary. No, 3 years. No, actually, yeah, we're coming on 4. Uh, and also, they turned my daughter against me. Money is tight. We're in a bad financial situation, so they blocked me, and they try to turn my daughter against me. And like I said, I don't, judge people by race or ethnicities, but I'm so sick of finding the people from the African American community. And then when I make a comment or I talk to somebody or I make a report or a complaint or a video, people always retaliate. Consider what's happening to my sister in laws abroad, former sister in laws abroad as maids, and then find out people from my own country are using them. I mean, at least one. Using them and making them think that they're going to help them, but they send a tiny bit of money and then they use them, as in sexually use them. That's human trafficking. People from my own country. And it all started. It all started the second year after we were back. That's what I found out last weekend. This is just one story. Nobody will tell me what's going on with my sister-in-law that's in Saudi Arabia because I told her don't go there. Yeah, first somebody lied to me and said she was in Dubai. She's in Saudi Arabia. That's not the place to send a young Filipino. I didn't even think she could go there. You're not supposed to be able to be a maid in the Middle East. You're supposed to be, last time I checked, was 24 or older. Because the things that happen to Filipinas there. But she's there. I have other sister-in-laws in Hong Kong being used by my own people. The only thing I don't know is if this African American guy is from Saginaw. That's the only thing I don't know. But I find it a coincidence that it happened around the time that we came back. This would have been our first year at Country Way that this guy showed up and she met him and he started manipulating her, promising, yeah, if you meet me at the hotel, then you'll get more money, knowing that she's poor. But anyway, this is about the VA. The amount of lying in my VA files, the amount of refusing to put, the complete console, the complete notes, the complete raw data, complete hospital records, especially when the VA paid for something. They're not there. And then, whatever is going on with VPA, why they decide to screw me over like they did. But I mean, I'm not the only one. But just when you read my letter, the latest rating decision, they contradict themselves within the letter on several occasions. And the way they wrote the letter, presumptive conditions do not have to have a nexus. The only thing they need to do is have a point where, yes, this person was here and they're now diagnosed with this. That's it. Then you look at the symptoms to see what rating level. That's it. You don't need a nexus event. That's that defeats the whole purpose. A presumptive condition does not require a service event, other than you were at this base or you were in this particular part of the world. That's it. Presumptive conditions are treated very differently when it comes to rating, but I guess not for me. And I'm not trying to whine for people to feel sorry. I'm not looking for people's pity. I want people to realize how bad things are going on here. Because if people are bold to do it to me, somebody who speaks up, imagine all those people who are scared to fight back. Imagine. Last time I read data from this VA, they service 40,000 veterans from about 7 different counties. 40,000 veterans. If they did this to me, the guy that speaks up, the guy that calls police, the guy that makes reports, the guy that records people, the guy that contacts senators. Imagine what they're doing to the people that don't fight back. How many veterans have we lost that their death is directly responsible to malicious people, people who are predatory, they have a predatory, abusive attitude, and people that just don't care, and people that are just totally incompetent. And targeted immunity, not just for police officers, but for the VA too. And acquired immunity. No, correction. And and oh, it's not targeted immunity. No, I'm speaking of. Sorry, I just ruined my own ending. It's called what kind of immunity is it called? It's um, see, fog. What kind of immunity? And positional immunity, we'll call that, and government immunity positions. I forgot the kind of immunity we're talking about. And authoritative immunity and government immunity.